powerhouse of the cell. Yes, in presence of oxygen, we can produce energy. This is important for you to remember in terms of Olympiads, competitive examination, NEET foundation, Beneda. Oxygen, very important over here. In between the inner membrane and the outer membrane, there is a space called as intermembrane space, and because of which now the molecules can enter, so that's why it is permeable. Why it is called as semi-autonomous? Because it has its own DNA, as well as it has all the enzymes required for the Krebs cycle. What is Krebs cycle? Electron transport system, right? And oxidative phosphorylation. Remember, important. Now my students, can you solve a NEET question today itself in this grade? Imagine if you can. Good! Best! Nothing is good than that. Hello dear students, welcome once again to this fantastic session where we are talking about the powerhouse of the cell. Yes, the powerhouse which supplies energy to the cell. This is Deveeka, your biology buddy, and let's get right into the session today. So, this mitochondria was first observed when who did it? A little bit of history about it. You know that it is a powerhouse already. You have been studying that it's a powerhouse since 7th grade. Now we are in 9th grade, so we definitely know that mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So where is it present? It is present in the eukaryotic cells. What type of eukaryotic cell? Aerobic cells, right? Which do aerobic respiration. What does it mean by doing aerobic respiration? Aerobic eukaryotic organism. Aerobic means in presence of oxygen, we can produce energy. That is basically aerobic respiration. So their mitochondria is responsible for aerobic respiration. That means in the process of ATP generation in the presence of oxygen. Right. So this fellow over here, Euler, was the one who named it, who observed the mitochondria first, Euler, and who named it? It was Beneda. Right. This is important for you to remember in terms of Olympiads, competitive examination, NEET foundation, Beneda, right? Beneda was the one who has named it as mitochondria. Now, why did he name it as mitochondria? Why not something else, right? So here basically mito means thread, and you know, here the structure is over here, right? So it is like a thread, right? In the cell, if you observe it, it appears like this. Okay, small thread-like structure, microscopic structure, right? So, mito means thread and chondrias means granules. So, thread-like granules which are present inside the cell is known as mitochondria. Easy? Yes, so that's why mito. Mitos means what? Thread. Alright, so Beneda was the one who named it and Euler was the one who observed it for the first ever time. Now, moving ahead, the location of mitochondria. You'll say all the cells. Yes, true, right? But not the bacterial cells. So, bacterial cells are prokaryotic cells. They do not have. So, plant cells, algae cells, some of the fungi cells, all the eukaryotic cells in short, right? Whoever does the aerobic respiration, they have mitochondria in the cytoplasm of both plants, animals, right? Eukaryotes, so they have that. Now, this cells, which cells? Some of the cells, like your RBC, right? Like your matured RBC, the one which have already got matured, they do not have mitochondria. Basically, matured RBC has nothing. It doesn't have nucleus, no endoplasmic reticulum, no mitochondria, no Golgi apparatus as well. The entire modification is done in a way so that maximum amount of oxygen can bind, and because there is no presence of cell organelle, it becomes a biconcave shape. So, who does not have mature RBCs do not have mitochondria. Yes, the small RBCs, the young ones, right, who has just been generated from our bone marrows, they do surely have, but mature ones, they do not have. Prokaryotes, obviously they don't have, right? Now, what is the job of mitochondria? You know, it is to produce energy molecule, adenosine triphosphate molecule. Now, how does it generate this energy? What makes it possible to generate the energy? From what does it make the energy? So, mitochondria, in the presence of oxygen and the nutrients like glucose, okay, the food that we eat, carbs, fats, all of those are broken down into smaller, simpler molecules, right? So, those which are like glucose, it is utilized, it is combusted, it is burned in the presence of oxygen to produce ATP. And where does it happen? It happens inside the mitochondria. So, I want your attention, my dear students. Oxygen, very important over here, right? Aerobic respiration only happens in mitochondria. Alright. Now, this is the structure of your mitochondria. What do you see over here? You see obviously a thread-like granule. Yes. But then there is an outer layer, right? The outer membrane. There's an outer membrane. Then there's a space in between. And then there is inner membrane. Okay, so this one over here is inner membrane. Now, if you look at the inner membrane, how is it? The inner membrane is something like this. Isn't it? So, the inner membrane, if you check it out over here, this yellow color, it is depicted in yellow color. It's not actually in yellow color. Right, this one over here. It has this finger-like projection. In between the inner membrane and the outer membrane, there is a space called as intermembrane space. What it is called? Intermembrane space. मतलब membrane के बीच वाली जगह. Simple. Now it has this finger-like projections, isn't it? Who has inner membrane only. Outer membrane is kind of permeable, right? And inner membrane has this finger-like projections, and this finger-like projection are called as cristae, right? Cristae, they are called as, what are they called as? Very important, guys. Very important. What is it called as? They are called as cristae. Right? Cristae. They are called as cristae. Now, this inner membrane is the site of aerobic respiration. This is the site where ATP synthesis takes place, right? Apart from that, you see the internal matrix is present over there. Just like any other organelle has the matrix, it also has the matrix. It's present over there. There are certain kind of granules that you see, and there would be this very fantastic structure called as DNA. Yes, that's why we call mitochondria to be the semi-autonomous organelle, because it has its own DNA and some of its protein, ribosomes, mRNA, tRNA, all of it can be synthesized by the mitochondria. So, it is not solely dependent on the cellular DNA. It can do partial job for itself. Partial मतलब some of, कुछ हद तक, right? खुद का काम खुद कर सकता है. That is why we call it as a semi-autonomous organelle, which can do half of its thing. Fantastic. Now, let's see ki we have discussed all of this, right? So, on those cristae, the outer membrane is smooth and permeable to many metabolic products, right? So, they have protein channels called as porins. So, the outer membrane has protein channels called as porins. Porins make kind of pores on the membrane, and because of which now the molecules can enter. So, that's why it is permeable. Now, inner membrane fold has finger-like projection. We have seen in the previous slide in the diagram how it is. It has this finger-like projection, isn't it? So, this finger-like projection is what? It is basically the inner membrane, and that projection is called as cristae. Right? Those are called as cristae. On this cristae, you have certain kind of elements. Okay, and the inner membrane possess mushroom-like of elements. So they look something like this, exactly something like this. Okay, so this is the structure. If I magnify this over here, this is how it looks like, right? And this thing over here is responsible for the ATP synthesis. So there must be a name for it. Yes. So the name for this one is F0 and we call it as F1. So F0, F1. Other than that, we call them as the oxysomes. Here, oxysomes or the elementary particles, the oxysomes, the F0, F1, all the same. Where are they present? They are present on the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Yeah, here it is magnified for you, right? So that's how it looks like. Now this particle are basically responsible for what? ATP synthesis. Now you know it in depth. What we have learned? Inner membrane is the site of aerobic respiration, basically where ATP synthesis takes place. Yes, inner membrane has something called as elementary particle or the oxysomes or F0, F1 particles, which are responsible for the process of ATP synthesis during the oxidative phosphorylation, right? So these particles are related to ATP synthesis by what process? Oxidative phosphorylation. Fantastic. Now we understood why it is called as semi-autonomous, because it has its own DNA. Not only DNA, now because DNA is present. What kind of DNA it is? It is a circular DNA. What kind of DNA it is? It is a circular DNA. Do you know where circular DNAs are found? Circular DNAs are usually found in bacteria. Okay? In the prokaryotes, you have circular DNA and it has similar kind of primitive type of DNA which is present inside it. So what kind of DNA? Circular DNA. Now when the circular DNA is present, it also can now produce short-reads, transfer RNA, tRNA, mRNA, messenger RNA, right? rRNA, ribosomal RNA. That means the mitochondria has its own ribosome, it has its tRNA, mRNA, DNA, and because tRNA, mRNA are present, obviously it will also have some of its protein getting synthesized for itself. Alright. Now when we talk about ribosome, what kind of ribosome? Now see guys, a link is there. You did not do ratification, you don't need to ratify anything. That's my aim, right? When we are starting a foundation over here and we reach for examination, we should interlink things. Now see, the DNA is of primitive type. DNA is primitive type, so it will also produce primitive type of material. Ribosome is getting produced from where? rRNA, from DNA itself. So the ribosome is also 55S to 70S type. This is basically prokaryotic type of ribosome. Okay, it's a prokaryotic type of ribosome, not the eukaryotic type of ATSR ribosome, right? So it has 55 to 70S, as well as it has all the enzymes required for the Krebs cycle. What is Krebs cycle? Krebs cycle is the process of aerobic respiration. So glycolysis, pyruvate is formed from glucose by the process of glycolysis, which itself is a 10-step process, right? Then it gets pyruvate gets converted into acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA then enters into the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, then it undergoes for aerobic respiration, it undergoes Krebs cycle, then ETC cycle, electron transport chain, right? So all of this process is happening. So all the enzymes required by this is also present in the matrix of mitochondria. Alright. Now from where do this mitochondria come? Yeah. And some cells like our muscle cells, they have high number of mitochondria because they have to do all the energy all the time, right? So they need a lot of energy. They always have to do the work all the time and all the time energy is required. That's why they have more mitochondria. So from where these new mitochondria are produced? They are produced from the existing mitochondria, right? They are produced from the pre-existing mitochondria. The same mitochondria divides and then, form another mitochondria. So it sounds something like a bacterial cell present inside our cells. Yes. So the theory says that itself. Ki these bacteria which are present inside our body, over the period of time, evolution happened and our body started utilizing them for some purpose, and that purpose was aerobic respiration, right? And that's how those prokaryotic cells got embedded into our cells, and now we know them as mitochondria. Okay, so now here, synthesis and storage of ATP, what are the functions? ATP, currency, power, adenosine triphosphate, right? So, by the oxidation of respiratory substrates. What are respiratory substrates? All that you eat, carbohydrate, protein, fats, right? So, then we have the matrix, which is a site of aerobic respiration. We spoke about Krebs cycle. Also, ETC, right? Electron transport system, right? And oxidative phosphorylation. Remember, important. All of these cycles do take place in the mitochondria. What are these? These are the steps of aerobic respiration itself for the process of ATP. So, oxidative phosphorylation, Krebs cycle, electron transport system present in Krebs cycle, electron transport system, oxidative phosphorylation happens where? Again, mitochondria, same answer. Let the question be in any other form. Answer is mitochondria if you hear all of these words. Right. Then, what is the exact site? I've told you earlier, inner membrane, the one which has those finger-like projection, because on those you have your oxysomes, the elementary particle, F0, F1 particle present, right? So, at times, not always, at times, when and as in when required, right? If the cell requires, like say, it's not your duty at your home to pay an your electric bill, but sometime when our parents are too busy or nobody is available to do that job, then our mom, because mom is the boss of the home, right? So she can ask us to go and pay the bill. Usually we do it from apps nowadays. So we would do that, right? As in when required. Similarly, mitochondria also can synthesize fatty acids, amino acids, because it has its own DNA. So, as well as it can do storage and release of calcium, but when required. Storage and release of calcium, but when it is required, then only. Alright, so that is not the permanent job. The permanent job, the major responsibility is to do ATP synthesis. Question for you on your screen, my 9th graders. Let's see. The cristae in the mitochondria serve as the site of what? Oxidation reduction reaction, protein synthesis, macromolecule breakdown, या फिर flavoproteins and are phosphorylated. What is the correct answer for this? You are supposed to answer me in the chat box, and you will also get the answer for the same questions in the Telegram link which is present in the description box. Now my students, can you solve a NEET question today itself in this grade? Imagine if you can. Good. Best. Nothing is good than that, because now it is sure that you can easily crack NEET examination one day, because you have started your preparation very early, right? Much we prepare, swiftly you will pass it off. पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि इतना tough क्या था. तो which of the following cell organelle is responsible for the extracting energy from carbohydrates to form ATP? Come on guys, it's such a simple, easy question for my rock stars. That's nothing. Lysosome, ribosomes, mitochondria and chloroplast. So my rock stars, thank you for watching this video. To get the answers of these questions, answer your question, post it in the comment box, as well as find the correct answer on Telegram channel. So please do subscribe to the channel, like, share and comment please. Bye bye, take care and keep learning.